invite you to tell you where are you visiting virtually, and somehow your name or the name of the company, your own name. Thank you very much. And in a second, we're going to start with the session.
Vamos a comenzar formalmente antes de hacer la presentación, mi
We're going to start
presentación y
formally
además
before
contarles un poco de qué
do
se
the
trata cada
introduction and
ensayo.
before telling you what is
Les
the
comento que
cycle
esta
about.
sesión va a
Let
ser
me tell
traducida
you
como
that this
todas las
session is going to
las de
be
la
interpreted,
AIccelerator,
as
tanto en
I
inglés como en
said,
español, así que los
in
invitamos
Spanish
a
and
que seleccionen
English. So
su
we invite
idioma
you to
en la
select your
parte
language,
inferior de la
and the
pantalla, en
button
el logo
part of the
del
screen
dibujito, ahí
at
pueden
the word
seleccionar el
logo.
canal
You can
correspondiente
select
a
the
su idioma.
channel that
Welcome
corresponds to your
everyone.
language.
Have a great afternoon or morning. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to the second date of this training cycle called AIccelerator. Before we start with the formal presentation of today's session, please remember that this cycle is being translated into English and Spanish. So we invite you to select your own language in the bottom part of the Zoom screen. You can choose between Spanish and English. Bueno, ahora sí, bienvenidos a todos al segundo día de la
Again, welcome
AIccelerator
everyone to the
2.0,
second day of the
este ciclo de
Guide
capacitaciones sobre
Acceleration
inteligencia
2.0.
artificial
This
organizada
is training
por
about
Conecta
artificial
Américas
intelligence
y por
organized by
the
Connect
International Chamber
America
of Commerce.
and the
Mi nombre es María
International
Florencia
Chamber of
Collado, soy
Commerce.
parte del
My
equipo
name
de
is Maria
Conecta
Florencia
Américas, del
Collado. I'm
programa
part
de
of the
vinculación
Connect Americas
empresarial
team,
del
the
BID, y les
entrepreneurial
agradecemos mucho la
bonding
presencia
platform,
de todos
and
ustedes.
we really appreciate the
Como les dije
presence of
recién,
all
este
of
es un
you. As
ciclo
I
que
mentioned before,
organizamos
this cycle
conjuntamente
we
con la
organized it in
International Chamber of Commerce
coordination with the
y
International Chamber of
concretamente
Commerce, and in
en esta
concrete,
semana contamos con
with
el
and this
apoyo
week we
de
have
empresas
the
de
support of
primerísimo
several
nivel
companies
como
of
son Google,
first level:
Microsoft, Salesforce,
Google,
Amazon Web
Microsoft,
Services,
Salesforce, and the
Umbria Tech
Web
Innovation Lab. Así
Umbria
que a
Tech
todos
Innovation Lab.
les
So to
agradecemos
all of
muchísimo el
you, thank you
compromiso, a todos
very
los
much for
speakers
the
que nos van a
commitment.
estar
To
acompañando
all the
por el
speakers,
tiempo
thank
que
you
nos
for
están
the time
dedicando.
that you're
Para
dedicating
todos
to
aquellos
us.
que no conocen
For
Conecta
all of you
Américas,
that don't
esperemos que
know
sean
Connect
pocos,
America, we hope that
queríamos
there's
contarles qué es
just a
Conecta
few.
Américas.
We want to
Conecta
tell
Américas es
what is
una
Connect America.
plataforma de
Connect America,
vinculación de
because it's
empresas, es la
a
plataforma más grande
entrepreneurial
de empresas de
bonding
toda América
platform. It's the
Latina
largest
y
one
el
in all
Caribe,
Latin America and the
que tiene como
Caribbean.
objetivo
It has as a
que las
goal
empresas latinoamericanas
that
puedan hacer
all
más
of
y
the
mejores
companies
negocios, que
can
puedan
be
hacer más y mejores
doing better
inversiones
and
también.
more
Y no
business,
solo en sus
more
países,
and
sino
better
sobre todo a nivel
investments, not only in
internacional.
their countries, but
Por eso
also in an
ofrecemos una serie
international level.
de
We
herramientas, todas
offer
ellas
certain
gratuitas,
tools,
como
all
por
of them
ejemplo
free,
ciclos de
as
capacitaciones, como
training
este
cycles,
ciclo.
or like this
Organizamos
cycle.
también
We
ruedas de
organized
negocios internacionales.
an
Contamos con una herramienta muy interesante que
international
se llama anuncios de
meetings for
compra, en donde ustedes
business, and
pueden
we have some
conocer búsquedas concretas de productos y servicios
research
que
that
compradores y
we have
consumidores
in
de todo el
services and
mundo
products that
están buscando. Así que, como
international
les digo, son
buyers from
oportunidades de
all over
negocios
the world
reales.
are
Ofrecemos también
researching for
información sobre
the
líneas de
um,
financiamiento
real
disponibles en los países
business, and
miembros
we
del
offer
banco
also
y
some
también
guidelines
ofrecidas
of
por nuestros socios
financing
locales, entre
with
otras
our
tantas
local
herramientas que
partners,
hacen que hoy
among some
seamos
other
una
tools
comunidad
that
de más
make
de
us today like
750.000
a
usuarios.
community of more
Así
than
que si todavía no
750,000
son parte de Conecta
users. So
Américas,
if you're
les
not
invitamos
part of
a
Connect
que
Americas yet,
se
we invite
inscriban en
you to enroll in
www.conectamericas.com. Un registro extra
www.connectamericas.com.
es gratuito, así
I'm
que allí
insisting this
dejamos
is
también
completely free
nuestros
of
datos de
charge, and I will
contacto.
give
Estos
you
son los
here our
gerentes
contacting
de la
information.
plataforma. Estos son los
These
míos
are
personales. Así
my
que ahí nos pueden hacer
information, my
llegar cualquier
personal
consulta
information,
sobre el
so you
ciclo,
can
sobre
have
Conecta
there any
Américas,
kind of consultation about the cycle in
o
Connect
simplemente para
Americas,
que estemos en
or
contacto.
just simply to being in
Hecha
contact.
esta presentación de Conecta
Having done
Américas,
this introduction of
quería
Connect
contarles,
Americas, I
por
wanted
si
to
alguno no
mention,
se sumó ayer,
in
de qué se
case
trata este
any of
ciclo
you was not at it,
bueno, esta semana
uh,
vamos a estar
I want to mention what is the
llevando
cycle
adelante.
about this
El
week
ciclo
that we're going
AIcceleratora
to perform
2.0
this week.
es la
The cycle
pregunta, edición, principios
Acceleradora
y comenzó el año
2.0,
pasado,
it's
que fue
a
realmente un
cycle that
éxito.
started
Especialmente
last year
decidimos
and it
volver
was a really
a hacer
successful.
una
That's
nueva
why we
edición
decided
que
to
tiene
do a
como
new edition.
objetivo
The main
justamente que
goal
conversemos y aprendamos más
is
sobre
to
inteligencia
chat and learn
artificial.
more
Un
about
término
artificial
que,
intelligence.
como
This
adelantaba
is a
ayer, parece muy
term that
complejo, parece muy distante, pero
looks
la
really
realidad es
complex
que no es
and
así.
distant,
Entonces, con
but
este
in
curso,
reality,
nuestro
it's not
objetivo
like
es
that.
que
So with
todas
this
las
training
empresas
course,
que están
our
aquí
main goal
conectadas,
is to
todos los
have all the
emprendedores, todas las cámaras, las
companies that are
gerencias,
here connected to
puedan
entrepreneurs and
conocer
the
qué
agencies
es
may
concretamente
be
la
able to
inteligencia
know what
artificial
is
y qué
artificial
herramientas
intelligence in
concretas
concrete,
nos puede
and what
brindar
tools
para
they
nuestras
can
empresas y
provide us
emprendimientos.
for
Vamos a
companies
estar
or
haciendo como el día de ayer, que hablamos sobre
organizations.
inteligencia artificial y
Okay, we're going to
ciberseguridad.
talk about
Vamos a estar
cybersecurity, artificial
pensando
intelligence, and we
a
are
la
going to
inteligencia
be
artificial como una
thinking
herramienta para potenciar
about
nuestras
the
ventas,
artificial
también
intelligence as a
vinculada a la
tool to
automatización de
boost our
tareas
sales and also
diarias,
be bonded
también
to
como una
the task
herramienta para
automation,
generar nuevos y mejores
also as a
contenidos,
tool to
entre
generate
otras tantas
better
aristas que hacen que
content
este curso
among
sea,
so many edges that
esperemos,
make this
sumamente
training course
interesante para toda la
very
audiencia.
interesting for all the
Cada una
audience.
de las sesiones está
Each one of the
liderada
sessions is
por expertos de
leading
primer nivel, así que
by
aprovecho
first
nuevamente
level
para
experts.
agradecer
So I
a los
take the
representantes de
opportunity
Google, de
to thank
Microsoft,
the
Salesforce, Amazon Web
representatives from
Services, que nos
Google,
están, y Mercado
Microsoft,
Libre, que va a
Salesforce,
liderar la sesión
Amazon
del
Web
viernes,
Services, that
que nos
Mercado
están
Libre, that is
apoyando
going to lead the
con este
session on
ciclo.
Friday, that are
Concretamente,
supporting us with
bueno,
this
ahora los voy a
cycle.
presentar, pero tenemos
I'm
a
going
dos
to introduce them later on,
miembros de
and
Google. Así
we have
que
some members from
les
Google.
agradecemos
So I really
muchísimo el
appreciate you.
apoyo a este ciclo que
Thanks
se
your
está
support to
haciendo
the
un éxito.
cycle that is being
Antes
a
de
really success.
comenzar por la
Before we
sesión de
start
hoy,
with
vamos
the
a
today's sessions,
contarles
we are going to
que,
tell you,
bueno, esto ya lo escucharon ayer los que
and you
estuvieron,
hear about this
pero bueno, nunca está de más
yesterday,
reforzar
but it's
que
not.
las sesiones se van a cargar
It's
en la
good to
plataforma, o
reinforce
sea que
that the
si no las
sessions are going to be
pueden ver
uploaded
por
to the
completo
platform. So
ahora,
if you cannot
luego
see
las van a
them
poder
completely
ver o
right now,
revivir
you
en
may be able to see
conectamericas.com,
them in streaming
escaneándose el
at the
código QR los
connectamericans.com,
lleva directamente a la
scanning the
sección de la
QR code
plataforma en
that
donde
will
van a
take
estar
you
cargadas las
directly to the
sesiones
session at the
y
platform
a
where
la
the
vez
sessions would
contarles
be
que
uploaded.
diariamente
And also
al
we want
email
to
con el
mention
cual
that
ustedes se inscribieron
we
les
will
vamos a estar
mail you
enviando la
daily
sesión
uh,
grabada y el
the
material
sessions
presentado
and
por
the
los
recordings,
speakers.
as well as the materials presented by the
También
speakers,
contarles que
to the
aquellos que
mail that you
participen del
gave us before.
80% de las
To all
sesiones
that the
van a poder
participants
acceder a un
that
certificado
achieved
de
80% of
participación. Vamos a
attendance to
estar
the
dando información sobre el
sessions, you're
mismo
going
en
to
la
give
última
a
sesión del día
certificate,
viernes.
and we're going
Y por
to do
último, invitarlos a que tengan un rol
some
activo, aprovechar que tenemos a estos
uh,
especialistas de lujo.
materials on
Así
Friday,
que
and we
vamos a tener
want
una
you
sesión de
to
preguntas y
be
respuestas
here
al final
because
de
we
la
have a
sesión,
very
en donde,
important
bueno, van a
specialist,
poder
and
hacerles las
at the end of
consultas.
the session,
Entonces
you
los
may be able
invitamos
to do
que
your questions.
ellos
That's
van a
why
estar dando la
we invite
presentación
you
y al final
that
yo voy a leer esas preguntas
you're
y esas
during this
preguntas. Así que
presentation. At the end, I'm
si
going
quieren
to read the
formular una
questions.
consulta,
So if
por
you want to
favor
make a
háganlo a
question,
través de
please
la
do so
ventana de
through
preguntas y
the
respuestas,
uh,
así
questions
mantenemos
and
coordinada
answers
la
window, and
presentación.
then we have this
Ahora
presentation
sí,
completely
vamos
organized.
a dar
So now
inicio
we're
a
going to
esta primera
start with
sesión del
this
día de
first
hoy.
session of
Esta
today.
se llama
We
Google
have
Presenta, Genial,
Google
con el juego de
Presents
palabras, y
Genia
Startups
with a
desbloqueando el
word
potencial en
game,
América
and this
Latina, a
unblocking
cargo de
potential in Latin
Ethan
America
Blanch
in
y
charge
de
of
Luciano
Eaton Launch
Martins.
and
Ellos son
Luciano Martins.
especialistas en
These
Google.
are
Aquí
specialists in
estoy
Google,
buscando
and
sus bio, así se los
I'm here
presento,
looking for
pero
his bio
quisiera
to
comentarles
introduce them, but I
que
want to
la presentación, ellos su
comment
idioma nativo es
that the
portugués,
presentation,
así
his,
que van a estar dando
his
la sesión
mother
en
language
inglés.
is
Así
Portuguese, but they
que
will be giving the
quédense
session in
tranquilos que
English.
tenemos la
So you
traducción
just
al
be
español.
comfortable that we
Bueno,
have the
Eitan
interpretation to
es
Spanish.
líder de
Ethan is a leader of alliances in Google, where he leads cooperations with risk capital and startups all over Latin America, with a very solid experience in sales and market entrance strategies and development in diverse industries like applications, services, B2B, real estate, and he's one of the most recognized specialists among this environment. He takes Ethan is using his knowledge to connect the innovation with a lot of products offered by Google. He started with his this company in 2011, and he's been going forward through different positions. He has licensing in management and Sepulio Vargas Foundation in Brazil, and specialized in management. And he has a program in Stanford in 2018. He, through the management of different relationships and resources from Google, Ethan connects investors and entrepreneurs with Google, fomenting the investment in Latin America. Thank you, Ethan. And now I'm going to introduce Luciano, and I will give the word to them. Luciano Martins is an AI developer advocate, and he is in Google since February 2020, where he's being immersed into transforming world of the cloud AI, promoting applications and innovating applications with artificial intelligence. His role at the company has a lot of technical experience and passion to empower the community of developers. Now we have the AI in Google that facilitate the option of artificial intelligence, they boosting innovation and efficiency. But for as a machine learning specialist, he perfection his skills in solution implementation and artificial intelligence to improve his uh, entrepreneurial capacities. He is having also a robust scaling knowledge to increase the needs of the companies. And it's a pleasure to have these tremendous professionals at Google. Thank you very much for supporting us. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to give the place to the specialist. Thank you, Ethan and Luciano.
Muchas gracias. Yo me voy a switch para inglés. Hey everyone, I'm Eitan. Thank you for AIccelerator for the invitation. It's a pleasure for me to share with you some of the insights that we have on the AI ecosystem here in Brazil. The way that me and Luciano, we are organizing ourselves is I'm going to share with you in the first 15, 20 minutes a little bit of the insights that we have in the ecosystem here in the region. And afterwards, Luciano is going to take us to like a practical insights and guide through like demos and how can we play with some of the Google AI features and the solutions that we can put in our day-to-day. Is that fine? Luciano, do you want to just kick off saying hi? And when I'm going to be start sharing my screen here just to say hi to everyone. So.
Sí, sí, claro, mucho gusto estar acá con ustedes. Soy Luciano, muchas gracias a
It's a pleasure to be here with you. My name is Luciano. Thank you very much for inviting us, and I'm really happy to have this chat with you to start saying that in case you have some doubts or questions, please write them at the chat or the session, and we will try to answer them afterwards.
Perfecto. Everyone can see my screen?
Yeah, it's okay. Yes.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. So I'm with just one screen, so please introduce myself if you have any questions, okay? So first of all, I want to acknowledge that understanding the ecosystem in Latin America has been like a long journey for us at Google, for sure. We ran this one study in early 2022 to understand a little bit about the ecosystem in the region. And after ChatGPT and after the generative AI hype and boom, we decided to run another one to try to understand what were like the challenges and opportunities that we have through generative AI for startups in the region. And the insights that I'm going to share here with you are exactly these, are those challenges and what we map it and what we understand there are like the main aspects of this ecosystem that we can address in the near future. So basically, this study was mostly focusing in Brazil. We mapped 351 companies in Brazil. 63 of them were part of our quantitative survey, and we ran 17 in-depth interviews. So it was a pretty comprehensive study to understand more on the use cases and the maturity of the ecosystem and how this ecosystem can approach these new challenges that comes when you have like a new technology such as generative AI uh, launching and changing our everyday lives. So this first acknowledgement is it's through like the hype that we are seeing because of this massive adoption. Probably most of you have seen one of those pictures. I think the Pope one is the most famous one, but I would strongly suggest and recommend to see the Harry Potter Balenciaga generative AI generated uh, 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 one, which is pretty funny as well. But the fact is, as we approach this massive adoption, I don't know if you know, but what it took for ChatGPT to get like to 1 million users, it took for Netflix 3.5 years. And for ChatGPT, it was like 5 days. So the technology, the massive adoption of the technology really challenged the way that we think about technology and the way that we use technology. And with that, we see a lot of doubts. We see a lot of new cases, new business opportunities coming out from those. And this is natural from every technology adoption that we see in this market. I've been at Google for 13 years, and I saw something of a kind of like a wave that we are seeing right now, which was like the mobile wave. So back in that time, we were thinking about like, oh, do I need to have like a mobile website? How am I going to interact through mobile? And what we are seeing right now, it's something that it's very similar to a new technology approaching. We're going to see new services. We're going to see new outcomes coming from this, like getting this paradigm that we have in terms of technology overall. When we approach a new technology and when we see this new value creation cycle coming, we can understand now a little bit about like where the value has been created. So in this graph here, you can see like three main buckets here. So we saw like the in the industrial era, what were the companies that drove more value? In the digital area, the companies that were able to drive more value. And now we're just in the beginning of this imagination era, and we are seeing already where the value has been it's been created. So if you have a look into Nvidia, it created like almost $1 trillion in value in past few months. We have OpenAI, Anthropic. So you have a new ecosystem being developed based on this new technology adoption and this new wave that we can see. And when we think about like systemically about where those from where this value will come from, we have two main aspects. The first one are the new business. So we estimate that generative AI can impact up to 5% to the overall GDP in the region. And the second one is productivity. So every business can gain productivity through generative AI. And there are estimations of like an incremental 12% on average on EBITDA, so operational margins. So value creation will come from two main things. So new business that will appear in our lives and that we're going to get used to, and the efficiency that we're going to be able to drive through this application, through this day-to-day application. And this transformation, we are already seeing this transformation like in several different industries. So we can see this in media, we can see this in customer services, translation, programming, legal, like any you name it. We can see this in every, of course, you're gonna have industries there are more given and the use cases are more simple and where people are starting to experiment. So perhaps the chatbots are like the first way that you're going to experiment generative AI and get like that wow moment. But we have in other specific areas, in other industries already, like many use cases being created. And this is happening not only in one place or like in several many industries, but what we are seeing as well is that there's a massive decentralization of the adoption of generative AI and generative AI being created in different places. So if you have a look in this graph here on my right or your left, I can say it right now. But anyway, this line here shows like the projects that were the AI project created on GitHub. So if you take a look here, 60% of these projects they were coming from United States in 2011, and nowadays more than 37% they come from the rest of the world. And when we have a look in Latin America has one of the largest developer populations in the world. So perhaps Brazil is the fourth developer community in the world. And with this decentralization, what we are seeing is that, and I don't know if you had a chance to look at the G20 yesterday, they sent like over the intention letters from the heads of state, and they were talking about like AI policies and AI national strategies and trying to figure out an alignment to develop AI. So as this is something so transformative in our society, this has been approached like in several different levels. What is happening on the funding side, on the other hand, is that we're still very behind. So if you have a look here, just as a comparison, this is the first quarter of 2024. You have like $90.3 billion being invested in 89 deals in US. And when we get to Latin, we're talking about like $22 million. So there's an important part here for us to think about, like how do we get more funding for those startups, for those business that are that want to implement and develop those type of technologies. I think it's important for us to acknowledge that this is still a very, very early stage game. When we evaluate how the startups they are doing, the AI startups they are doing, we see that 55% they have less than 15 employees. So we are like in day first for the ecosystem. 38% have never gone through any investment round. 29% in seed stage, and 30% in pre-seed, and 30% in seed stage. So it's very early on. We are just approaching like the first days of this ecosystem. I'm going to pause here and see if there's any questions or comments or anything on that they want me to answer. If you can send me just say, okay. I'm assuming we don't have, but I will follow the presentation. So basically, through this study, we mapped 11 challenges, and those 11 challenges we can divide them like in two main buckets. This first 8 challenges here, they were challenges that we saw in the first wave of the study that we ran 2 years ago. And these three new are the challenges that are basically what generative AI impacted in terms of new challenges for the technology. So, and through the A challenge that we saw in the past study, what we saw is that what we're seeing is that some of those were potentialized by the generative AI wave, some were transformed, one remained unchanged, and we got three new challenges. If we take like this those 11 challenges, we can bucket them in four main pillars. So literacy, so knowledge, understanding the critical analysis of technology, how people are using technology, they have access and understand how to use it. The business, so are the business seeing already economic value and viability through generative AI? What are the use cases that are driving value? Regulatory, so we have the ecosystem prepared and we have like the foundations prepared to enable business to build upon generative AI, and how the society is leading with it. So I'm gonna walk you through some insights of those four main buckets. Okay, so when we get like to literacy, what we are seeing, it's basically that we will need a different approach to education that we had in the previous ways. And when we ask the founders what type of leaders, what type of professionals they will need in this new wave, they're talking about like the development of soft skills, language, communication, and relationships will be crucial for this new wave. 89% say they're like sure that these skills will change. So we're gonna have like a big change in terms of skills, but they're gonna be like different skills that are gonna be required from those professions. We are seeing adoption in several different levels. So from the CEO to the management, analysts, they're all using generative AI in their day-to-day. And one specific thing that we call out for the ecosystem is like a hidden gem that we have in Latin America, which is we have 500,000 STEAM researchers. And this comes actually from a study that IDB did, I think, a year ago. We have 500,000 STEAM researchers, but only 1% of those are working with startups, are generating value through startups. So there is this potential of connecting the knowledge from the academia to the business itself into the day-to-day. So when you get to literacy, those are the main sites that we saw. When you get into like the business side and the business opportunity, we got into this quote here, which is generative AI hasn't found its product market fit. And these, not because people aren't using, but product market fit defines like that moment where your product can scale, where you can figure out like the next growth wave. So, and this is where generative AI is right now. So just 22% of the founders that we talked with, they were able to figure out the right measures to define how generative AI was impacting their business. 62% didn't have like any strategy developed, and 35% of those were figuring out funding. When you got like to top use cases, what's quite interesting to see is that their use cases were pretty simple. We mapped 60 different use cases, but they were the most common one were like summarization, create a source from a list of previous interaction, and create recommendations. So there's still, so as I mentioned, it's day one. We're starting to see like this approaching. Of course, there are more sophisticated use cases, and we can see many of those coming. But in general, what we're seeing is that there's still a maturity to come to the use cases that can be applied throughout those businesses, throughout those startups. When you get into regulation specifically, one thing that got to our perspective was the fact that there has been very little dialogue. So only 14% of the founders, they knew about that there was like a regulation being discussed in Brazil, perhaps. And we know that this is kind of like The same thing in different places in Latin America. Very little awareness about how our societies are discussing this on the legal level. But there is also another aspect. So 83% of the respondents believe that the generative AI should be regulated. There aren't certainty of the type of the regulation. So I think the insight here is that we need to be aware, we need to be discussing these in different levels through the society, because if we have perhaps a bill that isn't aligned with the development, it can really mitigate development through our region when we talk about like this technology. And the last thing about like society readiness, which is it's pretty important for us to touch, is founders. They were worried that when we talk about generative AI, most of times we have like a bad agenda or a negative agenda related to it. So 40% of the founders said they would like a more positive agenda regarding generative AI. And it's interesting to see this coming from Latin America specifically, because Latin America is in Latin America that we have the population that is more positive about generative AI worldwide. So we have a big percentage of the population that is positive, and this is totally connected to the opportunities that we have in terms of efficiency gain and the lack of services that we have in the region overall. So through this insight, so I hope you could like get into some of the insights that we had here. So through these insights, we divide like two main things. The first one is we have guidances for the ecosystem. So we have more than 30 guidance, and we have some like a pretty actionable resource, which is the founder starter kit. So we developed this practical guide to help business to accelerate it boldly and responsibly through generative AI. Here you can access here through this QR code the GenAI starter kit. I can put the link here in the chat as well. Let me see. So I'm gonna put the link in the chat as well. You can navigate here through this starter kit. But basically, this starter kit, it helps founders to think about their strategy, prepare themselves in terms of, and their teams in terms of like education and available Google available courses, and to ideate and experiment some of the use cases. The idea is not to be something that is for forever, because in this world of generative AI, we have lots of new things coming out every day. But I'm going to share with you like the platform here very quick, but you can get here into the platform and assess your maturity level, start a test, and you're going to access your maturity level. When you get into like the prepare yourself in the team, there is this glossary that you can get into more connected to the words that we talk when we're talking about generative AI, like prompt, parameters, or hallucination, what those terms stands for. We have here some kits that you can access, like the Dr. Katz playbooks, in terms of best practice to build it like in a responsible way. And of course, our programs and certifications that you can access in the end of the day. So this is part of it, and later, and I'm gonna hand over to Luciano here after showing you this. But basically, we have like some very simple use cases that are predefined, like chat with a PDF, chat with data, YouTube video summarization. Those very simple use cases that you can use with our Gemini 1.5 and generative AI from Google. So I will hand over now to Luciano. But again, thank you very much. I hope this has been like insightful for you guys, and count on us moving forward. If you want to get more information through generative AI, through the startup ecosystem, we are here to help.
Muchas gracias, Eitan. Ya tenemos muchas
Thank
preguntas
you,
para
Ethan. We
vos,
have a lot of
así
questions for you.
que al final
So
de
we're
la
going to,
presentación de
at the
Luciano,
end of
hacemos
the
lectura a
Luciano's
todas las
presentation, we're going to
consultas
read
juntas.
all the questions together.
Thank you very much, Eitan. Did you receive the translation? Yeah? I don't think so.
Sorry, what's for me? What's for
No,
me?
no, no,
Oh,
yeah.
the translation. Okay.
Okay, we receive a lot of questions for you, but what we are going to do is to listen to Luciano's presentation, and then at the end of the session we are going to read and discuss all the questions both of you received. Thank you very much. And
Perfect.
Luciano, you can start. Thank you.
Okay, let me share my screen here. Can you guys see my screen? Can you guys hear me well? Is all good?
Yeah, all good.
Okay, so the idea I brought here for you all is basically trying to keep in the same thinking line that Ethan started, but try to land how we start doing the tactical way of that. So how we can approach what we have available for you folks to try to experiment, to prototype using Google AI technologies. So I work on this group that we call Google AI, which basically means that we are responsible to be between what your folks are reading about Google research, Google DeepMind, all the novel approaches, novel models. We are working in the research level and make those services, those ideas, those solutions available to you all, being from students to communities of developers to startup founders to large enterprises, and make those services as much useful as possible. And we are doing that for a kind of while. If you think about the last few things we have delivered um, as Google AI, as Google solutions, we have since the early beginnings of Google Translate, going through TensorFlow as a framework to allow developers to create their custom AI solutions. And more recently, we have the AlphaFold, the DeepMind researchers over bioinformatics, so how to understand proteins, how to understand how they connect to other elements, to other proteins. And specifically for today, we are going to talk about Gemini, which is the most advanced and the most capable generative AI model developed by Google, available to you all. And I could. There are many different features, many different approaches you can take. I try to keep it highlighting the more important and the more differentiated factors you have with Gemini, which is basically the native multimodality, which means that since the T0 of the model, since when we start building and training the model, it is always it's being always multimodal, which means multimodality is related to data models, or we can say data formats. It means that Gemini, since day one, since T0, it learns from videos, from images, from audios, from pure text files, from code related information, or different modalities of information. When we talk about Gemini as an ecosystem, you have available Gemini, or you have different routes to interact with Gemini. You have the consumer's perspective when we are using the Gemini app, if you are using Android phones, or more recently we start launching for iOS as well, or for Gmail when you have some abilities to summarize your inbox or to help polishing one email, something like that. We have the business and enterprise perspective or access to Gemini via Google Cloud, via workspace capabilities, workspace features. And here I'm especially focusing on the ability to interact with Gemini via APIs, which pretty much is related to how developers or how advanced business users, business analysts can interact and see quick results with Gemini. Talking about the highlights, I guess one of the most important highlights with Gemini is its context window. Context window, we can create this view, this abstraction, on which we can think about context window as the memory the model have for one specific interaction. Normally, we have GenAI models with smaller memory or smaller capacity to hold information or to handle information to generate answers for us. And with Gemini, you have one version of it that we call Gemini 1.5 Pro, which has 2 million tokens as contexts, which we can think the size in like close to 2 hours of video or 24 hours of audio or million plus lines of codes. And that means that if I have some source of information that is too big, let's say I have a lecture from my university course and I have the PDFs for all the books I need to learn during the course. I don't need to keep splitting things and manage the sending parts of pieces of information and then have the weight over me to consolidate the answers. I simply send all together. I send my lecture or I send a podcast about a matter I like, and all the context in PDF formats or in coding formats. And I can ask Gemini just like that any kind of correlated question within this large context. So that's the power a large context gives us. When we talk about tokens, just to define a baseline, token is a concept in the natural language area, which basically represents a part of a word. So to make the vocabulary to be handled by the model simpler or smaller, we try to reduce or to represent words in those smaller formats, and similar words like variations of a verb, variations of nouns like gender or singular and plural became like the same tokens. This way we keep the same message we want to use, the same information we are handling, but the amount of variables or information to be handled by the model is smaller. How you can interact with Gemini. Here I have an example with Python. It is like pretty simple, pretty straightforward. You have basically three steps. You need to install the SDK, which is here my first line. I'm importing this SDK that on Python is called Google-Generative AI. It's a pip model. We simply do pip install Google-Generative AI, and that's it. Then second, you need to instantiate which model we want to use, which is the second line here, model equals GenAI.generative model, and between parentheses, which model I want to use. Here I'm using Gemini 1.5 Flash. And third, I started interacting with the model. So my third line is already a prompt. I'm asking the model to write a paragraph about something, and I have the answer. And that's it. With three programming languages lines, I have one quick interaction. But in the real world, how we deal with GenAI models, we start simple. So something like I've just shown, I simply send a request to the model and the model answers me back. And the next step, once I define the challenge I have, all the data I have, all the questions I have to answer, I may decide to go through two different possibilities. I can fine-tune the model, which means I will try to embed more knowledge and more information that is only mine, is not publicly available, to be part of the model knowledge. Or I can decide a secondary approach, as we call RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation, which is basically instead of embed static knowledge in the model, I can try to connect the model with an external source of truth, like a database or something like that. And every time I ask something to the model is able to check on this external source of truth and give me information. And to the point we are now, where we have so many complexity in the real world challenges that sometimes we need to embed static knowledge, like doing fine tuning. For other challenges, we can check one external source of truth, like a static database. And also we may need to check APIs. We may have one already running ecosystem for a product with like dozens of APIs. And instead of exporting information to a database, or even more important, if I have a really real-time scenario, like for example, my customer wants to track where their package is. If I have like one e-commerce or any kind of business where I ship things to users. It is not something that may be static like on fine tuning or nearly static as in a database. It's really real time. I need to check on an API, check the status now, if the package was shipped, if it is in transit, it is close to be delivered. And it is something we can only connect, putting the models together through APIs. And something unique to Gemini, still thinking on using tools to do things, is once you have Gemini as part of Google and Google search as the most used search engine in the world, now you have the ability with also very quick lines to ask Gemini to, when you make a question, when you send a prompt, it should simply check Google search to get the more current and the more accurate information about that. So doing like some few quick demos for you folks, that you have an idea of everything I've just talked to you, maybe starting with the search. I have here one notebook where I exercise how the Google search works. So as I told you before, I just needed to install the SDK, then I import the SDK on my code. Here I'm using my API key, something required for access control on the API. And then I instantiate my model, here the Gemini 1.5 Pro 002, and I'm using as a tool the Google Search Retrieval. That's the only requirement to connect to Google Search. You don't need to build any specific library, huge amount of code or something like that. And once I ask the question, and here I'm asking what's the area of Brazil, I have the answer, like a very complex and very rich kind of answer. But not only that, the API will give me the ability of render this button-like thing that when I click here, it opens a new tab, which does a real Google search, just to do a manual validation of how the information was generated, was captured. And also, it brings me all the metadata and all the low-level information of how the information was built. So it gives me all the links it used to build this information, as also all the chunks of text, all the pieces of text that it collected in different interactions and built together to give me the final answer. And the second and the last example I have here before we start like discussing in group is something very new. And I can assume that some of you have already used OpenAI to prototype something, like using GPT 3.5 or GPT-4 or ChatGPT or something like that. And in the last few weeks, we released what we call the Gemini compatibility with OpenAI API. What does that mean? It means that the same code you have already written using the OpenAI API, using the structure that the API requires to interact with the GPT models, now you can create a custom client using your Google API key, pointing to a Google API endpoint, and any interaction you have on your code, the same code you were using with GPT models before, you can have your code interacting with Gemini. Why it is something great? It is great because it is a chance you have to do quick prototyping, quick tests with Gemini, and even do A/B testing or comparative testing. You can run the same code with the same structures, with the same prompts against both models and evaluate which one is getting the best results for each kind of scenario. Okay, so I will share the assets with you guys later. I just had due to the time limits here, there are a lot of stuff I couldn't cover, like, for example, the offline models, the Gemma family models, and also the 150 plus open source and partner models you have available on Google Cloud to experiment the same way you can experiment with GPT and Gemini API. Or even for those of you who are in the routes of creating custom AI models or creating model from scratch on research area or trying to create state-of-art solutions on your startup, you have ability to do something faster and easier using the Google AI ecosystem. And last but not least, what we call the Google AI Edge, that is the last bit of this huge pipeline where I developed my solution, I'm using a model, I created a model, I evaluated the model quality, and the last step would be how can I create a mobile app or an edge computing solution to run my solution, my product. So we can have the whole process covered with the solutions we provide you all. Okay, and I will keep this slide here just to have you guys checking if you want. And I will share this deck with you too, so you can have access to all the code I shared here. I brought some links too. So the first link is the AI Studio, is the best tool you have to start learning Gemini. It's a low code kind of interaction. You don't need to be a programmer, a software engineer to start using Gemini. You can chat with it. You can upload the docs you want, the images, the videos, any kind of media you want to interact with. So to summarize something or to extract parts on a contract or something like that, AI Studio is the best place you have for that. And also you have the ability to move faster to the programmatic stuff using Gemini and converting your no-code experience to a code sample. The second is the official Gemini documentation, go.go/Gemini. And the third one is the Gemini Cookbook, where those codes I showed and many others are available to you all. Okay, so that's all I had. Thank you so much. And please, if you have questions, if you have doubts, please feel free to share now.
Muchas gracias, Luciano. Muchas gracias, Luciano. Muchas
Thank you very
gracias,
much,
Eitan.
Luciano. Thank you, Eitan.
No tenemos mucho tiempo, pero no
We
quería
don't have
dejar
too
de
much
leerles
time, but I
al
didn't
menos
want it to
una o
stop
dos consultas
reading
de las
one or
tantas que
two
hemos
questions of
recibido.
many that we received.
Si les parece,
And
les
if
voy a
you
hacer la
are
pregunta
agree,
en los dos
I want to
idiomas.
make the questions in both languages.
Así hacemos más
That
ágil.
way we can do this
La respuesta
faster,
sí, ustedes la dan en
and the
inglés y la
answer you will give
traductora
it in
queda
English, and the
directamente en
interpreter
español.
will do it in Spanish directly.
Para aquellos que ven
So
en el
for
canal
all of them that are in the channel right now. So one of the first questions is,
¿cómo puedo
how
ofrecer
can I
Gemini
offer Gemini to my Google Workspace for my customers and users?
Or share Gemini for Google Workspace to my clients or users?
I'm not sure about the overall question. If you want to jump in, Luciano, but basically Gemini, it's an add-on through your workspace, so you can through your like workspace contract and start using Gemini. So as a user or as a company, you're gonna be able to have Gemini embedded in all workspaces tools and features. So for slides, documents, even email composition, Gemini is integrated in all the solutions that we have. So I don't know if this responds to the answer, the question that they had. Luciano, do you have something to add there?
Yeah, basically, if the person is mentioning offering to customers in a way where you manage the billing for the customer and the customer acquires Google services via you as a broker, basically what you need to do is when you sell workspace seats to any customer, any company, you just need to make sure that the SKU for a Gemini workspace is included on the package for those seats. And that's it. Your customer is going to have Gemini on Drive, Gemini on Docs, Gemini on Gmail, the whole package for Workspace.
Thank you very much. Muchas gracias. A second question is for you guys. Which is the best approach to create prompts to the AI and get trustworthy responses? ¿Cuál es la mejor manera de crear indicaciones a la inteligencia artificial para obtener respuestas confiables?
Well, I guess
kind of advice.
Yeah, I guess right now that's $1 million question. Everybody's looking for that because one of the key advantages of LLMs like Gemini is also the challenge using that, because it has so many knowledge in so many different domains that it is almost a science to experiment to a level where you are trusting enough the results. For example, a very quick example, if I send a prompt to any LLM like Gemini saying, tell me about Argentina, it will give me any kind of answer related to Argentina. It may talk about the demographics, the sports, the food, everything. So the better I can refine my prompts pointing to the direction I want, the better or the closer the answer will be to what I'm looking for. So basically, maybe the best recommendation I can give you related to best practices is never trust on your first prompt. Keep prototyping, keep trying different approaches, trying different contexts to the model, and look for the best way you can tune the prompts and get results. When you are using Gemini on Google Cloud, which is on a platform called Vertex AI, you have in preview something that we are calling, I don't recall the current name, I guess it is Prompt Optimizer, which basically is a way that we are experimenting and give you access in preview formats to, once you send a prompt, you have the ability to use the AI to optimize your prompt. So it is one way to have more attempts or more different scenarios to test, but it is not yet the ultimate answer. Like you put the prompts there, and the optimizer will give you the best possible prompt. It will only give you more opportunities to experiment.
Great. Muchas gracias. And the final question, la última pregunta. We have a lot of questions, but we have to select one of them because of the time. Tenemos muchas preguntas, pero estamos seleccionando algunas por una cuestión de tiempo. It was mentioned that only 1% in Latin America is taking advantage or using GenAI. Is there a list of industry or solutions created in this region, or are there available same cases that can be shared with the audience? Se mencionó que solo el 1% de América Latina está usando Genia. Entonces el usuario pregunta si hay algún caso que pueda ser compartido con la audiencia, o si nos pueden mencionar soluciones concretas que se hayan implementado en nuestra región.
For sure. I think the 1% data was specifically the number of researchers working with startups in the region. The adoption is a little bit different. So I'm going to suggest two things. So first one, I'm going to share here. We have this compiled data of use cases of generative AI, 101 use cases of real-world generative AI cases with cloud. I think this is a good starting point. There are some cases from Latin America, and what I can say for sure is that we have a bunch of AI startups just being born in Latin America right now. So we have a bunch of them that we are working with. I can give you a couple of examples. There is this amazing AI marketing startup in Brazil called it Tracto. Tracto is a company that creates digital assets through AI. They are native. They're already working with 60 plus uh, uh, big advertisers in Brazil, for instance. You have another very interesting startup called NowMed that they are using AI to figure out um, heart diseases. On health tech, you have a bunch of great examples. So I would say that yeah, for sure we have some the study that you can access have some of those startups there, and there are many use cases being built in Latin America right now, and yeah, it's not only 1%. I would say that more than 70% of these startups they are already building something on generative AI and AI.
That's a great news. Es una muy buena noticia. Bueno, muchas gracias, Eitan. Muchas gracias, Luciano.
Thank you
Ha
very
sido un
much, Ethan
placer
and Luciano. It was
escucharlos.
a
Ha sido un
pleasure to
placer
hear
aprender de
you.
ustedes y
It's a
que una
pleasure to
empresa
learn
como
from
Google,
you and
con las
a company like
habilidades
Google
como las de
with
las
this
SMEs, de sus profesionales, nos
quality
estén
and
apoyando.
professionals quality that are supporting us.
Les voy a compartir
I'm going to
mi
share
pantalla al resto de la
my
audiencia
screen for
para ya
the
dar
rest of the
cierre a
audience
esta
to
sesión.
wrap out the session
Y contarles de qué vamos a estar
and to
hablando
tell
mañana.
you that we are
Primero,
going to talk
les recuerdo que
tomorrow
todas las
about.
sesiones
First of all, I
van a
want to
ser,
remind you
están
that
siendo
all
grabadas y
sessions
se las
are
vamos a estar
being
enviando
recorded,
diariamente, como
and
les
we're
dije
going
al
to send
inicio,
you
a su
recordings daily,
email
as I
con el
mentioned
material
at the
presentado
beginning,
por los
to your
speakers y
email with the
accediendo
material
a
presented by the
ese
speakers, and you
QR
can access to this
pueden
QR
ver
code. You
todas las
may
grabaciones
be
en la
able to see
plataforma.
all the
Por
recordings
otro
at the
lado,
platform.
recordarles que
Otherwise,
la
I want
Academia
to
Conecta
remind you that
Américas, que
the
es el espacio
Academy
que nosotros
Connect
tenemos para
America
capacitaciones,
is
ha
the space that
encargado
we have for
justamente
training.
de manera totalmente
We are in
gratuita un
charge of
curso sobre comercio internacional
uh,
e inteligencia
we have
artificial.
the
El curso,
international
como les decía, está cargado en
artificial
la plataforma, así que
intelligence
ustedes pueden
training
tomarlo
that is
en el
being
momento
uploaded to the
que
platform, and
puedan,
you
que
may do
quieran.
that in any time, whenever you
Contarles
want to.
también o
I
invitarlos
want
en
to mention
realidad que
also
se
that
sumen al
you
canal
may
Red Pimex
add
o
to the
Small and
PIMEX
Medium Enterprises Trade Hub
channel, that is
o
a
las siglas
small
en
and
inglés.
medium
Ahí
enterprises
nosotros
trade hub,
colgamos todas las
and
novedades
we
más
are
convenidas, ya
uploading there all
sean
the
ruedas
news
de negocios
about the Connect
internacionales, cuando estamos
America,
lanzando un nuevo
when they are
curso,
doing international
oportunidades de negocios
business
privadas,
summits,
sitios de
and when
compra,
we're
entre otras
launching a
muchas
new training
herramientas.
course and
Y
many
por
other
último,
tools. And
y como les decía a los
lastly,
que estuvieron
as I want to
participando el día de
mention
ayer, estamos
to the
lanzando una
participants
nueva
from yesterday
herramienta que
with
se llama
launching the new
ADA,
tool that
que está en
it's
versión
ADA.
beta,
It is a beta
en
version
donde
where
básicamente esto es un
basically
asistente virtual que
it's
utiliza la
a
inteligencia
virtual
artificial
assistant that is
para
using artificial
machear el
intelligence
perfil de
to
sus
match
empresas
the
en Connect
profile of their
Américas
companies in
con
Connect Americas with
potenciales clientes en caso de
potential
que ustedes sean
customers in
proveedores o
case
con
that you are
potenciales
providers
proveedores en
or
caso de que ustedes
potential
sean
providers in
importadores
case you are importers.
también registrados en Connect
Now,
Américas.
register in Connect
Esto es muy
Americas.
interesante en un mundo cada vez más
This is really
competitivo,
interesting, and
contar con una
so every
herramienta
time is more
que nos
competitive to
permita
have
buscar
a
una
tool that allowed us to
contrapartida en el
find a
menor tiempo
counterpart
posible. Es
in less time.
una herramienta más que
I
interesante, pero
believe
como
that
les
is a
contaba, está
very
en
interesting
fase
tool, and
beta,
as I
así
mentioned
que
before, it
los
was in a beta
invitamos a que
stage.
entre
So
todos
we invite
construyamos
you
a
to
ADA.
build among all of us
Así que si
the
quieren
build
ser
ADA.
parte de los
So
beta
if you want to
testers,
be
los
part of the
invitamos a que
beta
escaneen el
testers, we
código,
invite you to
completen
scan
el
the QR
formulario
code,
y
complete the
hagan
form,
la
and
prueba de ADA.
do the test, the ADA test.
Por último,
And
adelantarles la
lastly,
sesión del
I
día
want
de
to
mañana.
say that
Mañana
tomorrow's
vamos
session,
a tener
we're
una
going
sesión
to
liderada
have
por
a
Salesforce sobre
session
cómo mejorar
led by
tu negocio
Salesforce,
con Agent
how to
Force,
improve your
a cargo de
business with
Joaquín
Agent
Romero y
Force,
Martina
in charge
Moschetto.
of Joaquin
Así
Romero
que los
and
esperamos
Martina
mañana
Moschetto. So we hope
con
to
el
see you
mismo link
tomorrow
y en el mismo
with the
horario de
same
contacto.
link and the same schedule,
Perdón, con el mismo link de
and
contacto y en el
with the
mismo
same
horario.
contact link
Y
at the
bueno,
same
les dejo
time.
los últimos
And
segundos
I'm
a
going to
Eitan y a
leave
Luciano
you
para que den
the
sus
last
palabras
seconds
de
to
cierre.
Ethan and Luciano
Personalmente
to
les vuelvo a
have the
agradecer, ha
closing
sido un
words. And
placer
I
trabajar con ustedes
really thank
estos
you.
días y
It's been a
estar
pleasure
preparando
to
la
work with
presentación.
you then these days preparing the presentation.
Thank you very much. Gracias. I just want to share here, like I'm gonna put in the link, my LinkedIn. If you have any questions, please reach out. Very happy to answer the questions. And yeah, please start using Gemini and building on Gemini. We are very excited with technology. Bye bye. Thank you very much.
Gracias. Gracias a todos. Hasta mañana. Adiós.
See you tomorrow. Thank you, everyone. See you tomorrow.